Thank you all for joining. It's nice to see a lot of names come back from yesterday. Uh, Today is the second day of our workshop, and I look forward to presenting it once again. I'm going to pull up the slides here, and we'll start immediately. I think we have enough people. So, welcome again to day 2 of our workshop on using technology. As a reminder, yesterday we covered websites, apps, and social media. Today is going to be more focused on concepts of technology which might be relevant to your business. So I'm going to broadly cover a wide range of topics. I'm going to briefly mention a bit on each topic so that you can decide if you do need to implement it in your business, if there's anything useful there. It's definitely something for you to look into a bit more, to research more, and maybe get in touch in the future to see what can be done. So today we are going to talk about using technology for business operations, payments, data analysis. I'm going to talk about security, accounting, and so on. And we're also going to talk about some general technologies which are used in businesses. So cloud automation tools, we're going to talk about productivity tools, just applications which help you out and basically make running your business easier. So to start, we have the first section here. And just as a reminder, we do have sections for questions, but if you do have anything in mind, if you want to discuss anything, let's try and make this interactive. Feel free to type anything in chat, and I'll try to pay attention to the questions coming in, either now or after every section. So, how to grow your business using technology. In the first section, about using technology to enhance operations, I'm going to talk about payments. And payments is something which comes up a lot. Most people I talk to are always thinking about ways to receive money. Obviously, with the current trends, having things changing, it always makes sense to have different ways of instead of cash. And I will talk about online payments. That's a big one. It's something you might want to consider even if you're not selling products online. So a common misconception is people think they need online payments when they are selling things online. But in essence, you can actually use remote and online payment methods to charge for anything, right? And most businesses do want to charge. Most businesses have clients who are consumers, but this also does come in handy when it's B2B. So we have businesses offering online payments to other businesses they deal with for payment of invoices and so on. So we're going to talk about that as well. To start my, let's say, a brief section I just wanted to talk about, it's a small thing. It only applies to those of you who have retail. I don't know how many there are. If you do have retail, you can mention it in chat just so we know. But all retail shops, or the majority of them, have point of sale machines, the cash register. And a very small thing, which the majority as well don't do in Bahrain, is connected to the credit card machine. So you end up with the employee, the cashier, having to manually type in the amount before they hand you the machine, and you put in your card and you have to pay. Now, it's a very small thing, but I think it's one of those things which makes a huge difference to the customer experience. Again, one of those subconscious things I like to talk about. Customers won't remember or focus on the fact that, you know, you took an extra 15 or 20 seconds to type in the amount, but the automation is there. The ability of these machines provided in Bahrain to automatically get the amount after the cashier rings up all the items is there. It just needs, you know, an IT guy to connect them together to get it done, and then you can actually have the amount automatically come up when the customer is done. So again, small thing, I just like to point it out because whenever I go to a retail shop and I notice it's not there, it just degrades from that experience a bit. Another thing we have, which is new, introduced this year, is contactless payments, tap to pay. And again, it's something as a retailer you should definitely try to get. It makes you future-proof. Apple Pay, Google Pay, and other payment methods are going to come in the future. And if you do have contactless payment, you are ready today to receive Apple Pay payments. The process is simple. You need to talk to your credit card provider. So you might be with Credimax, NBB, Ahli. You can request it. They might ask you to pay for a new machine. But I think it's something you should insist on. You should have that system in place. And it also, going back to the first slide, makes the integration between the register and machine easier if you have the new machines. Okay. So we'll move on to the big one, online payments. And I think most of you should have seen this online payment screen. The system we use in Bahrain is a MasterCard system. It's developed by MasterCard and provided to different banks around the region so that their customers and retailers, in essence, can charge for credit card payments. Now, this is an outdated system. It's been there for, I think, 15 years, and you can see, the look of it hasn't improved much. Some of the banks are trying to improve, but it is what we have in place. It is what most customers are used to. So if you are talking about online payments, this is the system you're going to be using. And to use the system, you need a developer. It's not something I would recommend any business owner try to learn to do on their own unless they are programmers and into coding. If you want to take the step, obviously you need the website. We talked about websites yesterday. Once you have a site or a page, you can actually create any form of payment on it. So forget about products. Forget about having a shopping cart and getting people to add things and so on. The concept can be as simple as having a page where a customer clicks and has an option to pay 10 dinars, and that can be for anything. So this is a MasterCard system. Question from Masuma is, what's the difference between Credimax and MasterCard? The difference is MasterCard is the main provider of this whole system, the online payment system in Bahrain. And there are several companies or banks which bring this to you. You don't contact MasterCard directly. You actually go to Credimax, or you go to Ahli United, or you go to Betelco / NBB. They have a partnership. So you go to one of the three. You sign an agreement as a merchant. You need to have a CR, obviously, to work with them. You agree on a fee, for example, 3% of all sales. And then you sign the agreement, get all the all the login details, your account details, and then approach a developer to create any online payment system you need. And as I said, it can be as simple as charging for basic services. If you are selling something for 10 or 20 BD, you can have that as a fixed price. If you are developing something more complex, like an online shop with a shopping cart and multiple products and categories, you can also integrate this with your shop. But again, you do need a developer to do so. Another question is that you can receive payments with PayPal through BSP. Now, I did not make a slide for PayPal, so I'll just talk about it now. What I mentioned here are options to receive payments using credit cards and Bahraini dinars. Okay, so that's a big one. When people pay online, they like to see payments in their own currency. There are other solutions. There are global solutions, the biggest one being PayPal. PayPal allows you to register online. You don't need a CR. You can be, it can be a personal account. And you can create your account and accept payments from people, even if they don't have PayPal accounts. They can pay using their credit cards. But there's a caveat here. PayPal is a US company, so you don't have anyone to talk to here. You need to rely on their online systems. You do need a developer for most integrations, although they have ways of getting payments by email. And I think the difficulty used to be in the past that you cannot get your money out of PayPal because you needed a US bank account. Now today, BISB have an exclusive partnership with PayPal, allowing you to connect your local bank account with your PayPal account so that any payments, all the money going into your PayPal wallet, can actually be pulled out, and you can withdraw that from your BISB account. So that is an option. It's available if you do want to use PayPal. But because it's not a local option, I don't see many people going for it unless you do have, let's say, a majority of global customers. You have a lot of US customers. They are used to PayPal. They like to see that name and brand there. And they have PayPal accounts where they can pay not just with credit cards, but with their PayPal wallet accounts. So it does make sense in those cases. Moving on from these options, we have more modern options. And when I say more modern, it's just because when you look at this system, I mentioned earlier, it's been there for 15 years, right? It hasn't improved much. What it is, it's a page, and your customers buy something, and then they get sent to a completely different page, which looks nothing like your website, okay? More modern solutions offer integrations with multiple systems. So you can actually have mobile payments. You can have saved credit card details and recurring payments. One of these on the screen right now is called Gatey. It's a Bahraini company. And the nice thing they did is integrate different payment solutions so that just by going to them and just by signing up with one account from Gatey, you can actually accept payments from other services like benefit for debit cards. You can actually get PayPal payments, you can get credit card payments, and so on. And that's sort of all transparent and without doing any additional work from your side. So you just sign up for that one account. Their development methods are easier. You still need a developer, but if it would take 10 days to integrate the MasterCard system, it would take 1 day to integrate this Gatey system. And that's just one of the solutions we have. Zainab asks, we feel safer shopping with sites which have PayPal. Are there similar payment gateways in GCC? I think it's only the ones mentioned today. PayPal is not just a payment gateway, it's a wallet as well. So we don't quite have something exactly the same. We don't have a brand name, which is the same as well as PayPal. But what I'm mentioning now, the other services I'm going to talk about, we have another service similar to Gatey. It's called MyFatura. MyFatura is a Kuwaiti company. And again, they are easy to integrate. They are friendly as well for non-CR holders. I think it's either this one or the next one. So you can be an individual, you can be an Instagram business and accept payments. And they have many features such as creating invoices, emailing them, sending them by mobile and getting people to pay. And they are quite popular in the GCC. So the name right now is known a lot in Kuwait and Saudi, and they're open to Bahrain. So it's a great option if you want to accept online payments. The other one is Tap. So I advise you to look into both of them, Tap and MyFatura, especially if you don't have a website and you're not selling online products. Then they make sense because you can actually use their interface to generate invoices, and you can actually rely on them completely even if you don't have a website. So these three solutions, just going back, we've got Gatey, we have MyFatura, and we have Tap, and they're not the only ones. There are other options. There are other payment gateways in Dubai mostly. There are some in Saudi. But if you are a business, I think these are the main ones you would be considering and thinking about for your business. Now, moving on from payment gateways, we have another option, which is wallets. And I don't know if any of you have used these. I'm sure you've seen them. And they offer payment options for point of sales. So you actually have a, let's say, device at the retail shop, but they also have options for online payments. Now, both of these, STC Pay and B-Wallet, are local options. They have not really picked up that much, I would say. So for online payments, the option is there, but it still makes sense for most people to go with the traditional solutions. It makes sense to go with these newer options as well, but these are there for you to accept. You can have them as an add-on. It does not hurt to add more options. At the end of the day, you are accepting payments from people. So the more methods you provide, the easier it might be for your customers to pay, and that's always good. And the last option I wanted to talk about is benefit pay. Now, again, benefit is one of those services which has really grown in the past few weeks, especially with what's going on around us. Even smaller shops, in the neighborhoods are now accepting benefit payments. And it's a great option for businesses because most people don't need to think twice about how they're paying. They don't need to enter credit card details or remember them. They do it straight from their mobile. And it does have a point of sale system as well for retailers to use. But when it comes to online payment, I think it's a different field. So when you're talking online payment, you still have to go with credit cards. Maybe an easier way to pay with benefit pay online will be introduced in the future, but it is a payment method you can accept. The limitation being is that there is no integration with other systems. And let me briefly talk about that. The nice thing about these systems when you use them is that when someone pays, it can be linked to a certain order. It can be linked to a shopping basket with products and services. And you get notifications, right? So it's a whole integrated system where you can develop things to attach to it, to expand and to cater for specific business needs. When you use something like benefit, the payment is completely detached from the system. So you would create an order. You know that a certain customer, for example, would need to pay 50 dinars, let's say, but then you would need to manually ask them to open the benefit app and then pay that 50. And then you would go to your own system and try to find that payment and cross-reference it to a customer and then mark them as paid in another system. So, you can imagine it's not let's say it's not as clean as having something which is integrated, but I think the fact that it's available makes up for it. Huda mentions that you can also pay with Fawatir and benefit pay. And Fawatir is also a good option if you don't need instant payments. So for example, if you have an online shop where people add products and you create an invoice for them, it takes time to create that in the Fawatir system and then ask them to go and pay for it. But for things like bills, if you have monthly invoices, or if you have a project, if you're offering consultancy service and you want to bill a customer, then you can get in touch with the benefit company to be on the Fawatir app and basically ask your customers to go in, find your company on the app and find their invoice, immediately pay for it, and then you can have some sort of link with that actual service and remember the payment. Ila Bank has multiple currencies as well. Yes, Ila Bank is one of the more modern banks, and I do recommend it for anyone opening personal accounts as well. They do offer you multiple, let's say, multiple currencies and different options. Now, this was all we have about online payments. Now, we did have questions yesterday. I don't know if we covered all of them, but before I move on to the next section, does anyone else have any specific or more in-depth questions about payment methods? Because I'm not going to cover this again. And I just want to make sure, having this as one of the most important sections that we did cover it. I'll quickly recap through the different slides we have. Okay, and then I think we'll move on. We do have a guest speaker coming in at 7, so I'll try to finish the next section before they do. The next section is about data analytics, okay? And this is something relevant to all businesses, even if they don't think it is. When we think about data, we always think about companies and we think about all the different information they have, okay? Businesses, especially traditional, huge, bigger companies, have a lot of systems, and every system generates data. So every time you interact with the customer, every time you even receive an email, or you have an order, or you sell something, that's a transaction which goes into a system. And During the past few years, specialized companies and specialized methods in analyzing data have allowed us to see patterns. So we've actually seen that uh, using data allows us to find patterns which will then, uh, let's say, change the way we do business to increase sales. Okay. A small example might be if you're a small business, if you're an Instagram business, right? You get people commenting on your account. You post things and you get likes on your pictures. So that's a very small example. Now imagine if you use that data to figure out what the perfect time of day to post would be. So just by analyzing different posts at different times, historically going back to the last 100 things you posted, at what times people commented, at what times people liked, you might find the perfect time for you to make a new post, which would actually double the engagement you got from older posts. So there are special techniques you can use to gain insights into data. There are more sophisticated models for companies which have more data, for companies who will specifically use engineers to develop ways of analyzing data. But for the most part, for small businesses, it's something you need to think about. You need to think about all the data sources you have. And the important thing here is record keeping, right? So it might be as simple as an Excel sheet where you can actually record the transactions you have with your customers. But even that in itself can lead to very valuable insights into the behaviors of your customers, right? And then you can use that behavior to sort of change the way you do business and cater for those customers. So this is just an example of data analytics. If we take a look at this slide, it's about looking at where you are, the reality of what you have, collecting that information by any method. And again, that's something you can think about. You can talk to a developer, and something which would make sense as we go on through this presentation and talk about the tools we are using to interact with the customers and the applications we use in the business. And you will notice that going forward, all these applications and systems have ways of exporting that data and using it to visualize and eventually create a change based on that data. A question from Sarah going back to the previous section on payment methods. When using website builders, is it possible to integrate those payment methods? No, for the most part, I would say it is not possible. So again, that's one of the limitations of the website builders. Now, because those builders are all, mostly US based, catering for the Western market, some of them do offer integration with PayPal. So PayPal does make it easier to integrate with those website builders. You do have more options, but being in Bahrain, if you're talking about something like the MasterCard gateway we talked about through Credimax or any of the other banks, then even if you have a developer, it is difficult to use website builders. You do need to move on, or let's say upgrade to your own website, and then you can integrate with those payment methods. Okay. Now, the next section I wanted to talk about is something I really like to stress. It's one of the areas I really think a lot of people don't focus on and forget. Myself, I used to be guilty of this, because you create accounts, you end up having many passwords, and then you just keep reusing the same passwords and forgetting what you had. There are tools today which allow you to save all your passwords in one place. And I think this is relevant for businesses as well as individuals. It's relevant for teams if you have more than one person on the team. And if you are going to be using these applications we are talking about today, then you are going to have multiple accounts. And you are going to need to share passwords between different people. So it just makes sense to use what we call password managers. It makes sense to make sure your main password is backed up, and it makes sense to make sure your data is backed up as well. So um, data in a business, especially offline data, right? If you're not using online systems, if you're not saving your information to the cloud, it's probably saved on a machine. And there have been cases where customers come to us and say, we had all our records on this machine, can you recover it? And that's a costly and time-consuming process, which everyone should avoid. So keep security and data always on the back of your mind. As you're focused on business, especially if you're a startup, you don't have an IT guy, you don't have someone dedicated to take care of these systems for you, but there are many resources you can use online. And I'm just gonna show you um, two rules, I would say, which are enough for you to be completely secure, okay? Rule number one is always use unique passwords. So never reuse the same password on two different sites. And this is probably the hardest rule because everyone wants to remember their password. But the new paradigm in security says forget all those passwords and use a tool to record them, which I will show you in the next slide. Um, you have to remember one main password. It's going to be a long, maybe sentence based on multiple words, but that one password is something you should never forget and use to recover all your other passwords. And then the other thing is to enable two-factor authentication. And this is, I think, more important for social media accounts. We have seen cases where um, local business accounts get hacked simply because they're using a weak password, or it's a case where someone leaves and the password gets recovered by someone else. But two-factor authentication, for those who don't know, is simply a method of using your phone, for example, after you log in to confirm that you are the same person trying to log in. So even if someone knows your password, even if someone has your Instagram account, login, email, and password, the minute they try to log in, Instagram will ask you for a code from your mobile phone, which is something they don't have. So two-factor authentication does protect you from such attacks. Password managers, that's the main thing I was talking about. There are many options. I personally use LastPass and 1Password, but these are all good, okay? And the nice thing about them is that they offer you a desktop solution, so you can use them as you are browsing the internet and as you are, let's say, normally going to a website and entering your details, and it will automatically fill your details. This is sort of what it looks like on the back end. So this is an example of someone who has multiple accounts on Amazon, Dropbox, Facebook, and so on. And again, these can be the services you as a business are using, right? We're going to be using more and more of these online services, and we're going to need this password to be secure. What we don't want to do is have it on a sticky note posted on a machine so that all the staff can come in and log in to the system whenever they need to use it. I've seen this a lot in retail. I've seen it in bigger companies as well, because everyone needs access to the system. And this is where a password manager comes in, because you can, as you see here, you can go on an item and you can select to share it with different people, and then they would have their own accounts and they would be able to access it and use this to log in. And you can also see how it works on sites where you simply don't need to worry about going and picking and choosing and copy pasting. It automatically works using a browser extension, and it helps you basically even create new password. You can see here on the right side, it helps you generate new secure passwords. And again, you don't need to remember these passwords. The minute you click save, think of it as a very secure vault. You do need to remember that one important password I mentioned earlier, but once it's there, once it's saved and set up, you don't need to worry about it. You can go to any of these websites. You can I think LastPass is even free, but even the costs are minimal, something like $1 a month, which is definitely worth it. You do end up getting them on your phone as well through a mobile application. So even the applications used on your phone, when you do need to log in, uh, will allow you to automatically fill in using the password manager. So to use it, to answer a question from the chat, you go to any of these services and create an account. Once you create that account, you actually will have it up and running. So there's not much more you need to do. They will guide you through installing an extension. They will guide you through, let's say, installing the mobile application. And I think that will help you, be secure and take things to the next step. Okay. Okay. Next section we have is about bookkeeping tools. And essentially bookkeeping is nothing more than accounting, right? It's just another way of saying accounting. And the reason I wanted to mention this today is that, at least with my dealings in businesses in Bahrain, the majority of them haven't been using proper bookkeeping methods. And this is something we especially see in startups, because traditionally, startups were, it was one person or it was a group too focused on the core business to think about the sort of operational issues like bookkeeping. And bookkeeping can be as simple as using Excel, so you don't need to worry about more complicated systems. Um, it can be an online system, which I will show as well. And the nice thing about systems today is that they are linked to your bank account. So if any of you have heard about open banking in Bahrain, it's a new, let's say, service or functionality coming from banks this year, which will make accounting much easier because every transaction or the details and records of your bank account can be automatically linked to these systems you are going to be using. Okay. Now, one example of these systems is Zoho Books. If you remember, we spoke about Zoho yesterday, and Zoho offers many other solutions. We will cover another one today, but I think when it comes to, let's say, you as a business, it depends on who's going to do the data entry, right? So Zoho is one solution. We have another one called Zero. Zero is another good cloud solution as well. And I don't know if you can notice, but just by looking at these charts, let's say in the background, isn't this something, every business would benefit from having? Just having charts, just having graphs and colors and transforming the boring look and feel of um, Excel sheets into something which you can have as a dashboard. I think there's a lot of value to that. So I highly recommend looking into these solutions, right? For your bookkeeping needs, I highly recommend you consider not just Zoho and Zero, but talk to whoever is going to do your accounting. If you are doing it yourself, I recommend looking at these two and checking out the training they offer. So they do have online training, and I don't think it's difficult to pick up. They do cater for smaller businesses as well and try to make things easy for everyone to get on. They do support Bahraini Dinars, which is something they didn't used to do in the past. So it's definitely something I highly recommend to be done. So with those sections covered, we're gonna move on to something different. We have a guest speaker today from Zain, and I'll just ask the organizers now to allow the guest speaker to speak to you guys. I think you'll all be very interesting in what she has to say. So welcome Shema Asiri from Zain. Thank you very much for being with us today. And we'd love to hear what you have to share with our guests today.
Hello, good evening. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
How are you, Ehsan? I joined, I think, sometime around when you were talking about data analytics, and that's
Yes.
one of my favorite topics. I wish you would have spoken about it a little bit more.
Yes.
I, it's one of the things that I think adds a very big, I would say, benefit to a company if they know how to utilize that correctly. But yeah,
I'm sure at Zain you have a lot of data analytics, right? You have, I mean, for someone who's into data analysis, Zain is beautiful because you have all these records, calls, customers, payments, just so many things you can do so much with.
It is beautiful. I used to work with data analytics before as a product owner, and it was one of my favorite things to do. But I've shifted now to corporate sustainability, and this is what I'm here to speak about today.
Okay.
So, hi everybody, my name is Shema Asiri. I'm working at corporate sustainability in Zain. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about corporate sustainability because it has a lot to do with startups. So wanted to first introduce or tell you what is our mission in Zain when it comes to corporate sustainability. And the mission that we go with is to provide a meaningful connectivity that leads to equitable, systematic change grounded on the SDGs. So the SDGs are the Sustainable Development Goals, which was agreed on in the United Nations on certain goals. There are 17 goals that by the year 2030 they would like to reach to it. We at Zain Group and Zain Bahrain are signatory on those SDGs, which means that we pledge to work for them and make them happen. Now, one of the biggest or one of the three SDGs that we work with in Zain, and it has a lot to do with entrepreneurs, is SDG number 8, which is economic growth and sustainable work environment and economic growth. And the other one is gender equality, which is SDG 5, and then SDG 10, which is reduced inequalities. So one of the biggest projects that we've led in Zain years ago, I think this is the third or the fourth year, to be honest, is Khamisna Zain, where we support local startups or local businesses in order to come and showcase their business in our buildings. So they come, they get the platform to show what their business is, whether it's food, beverages, product, services, whatever it is. They come there, they've got the chance to showcase it either to both to our employees and to external parties as well. We give them coverage on our Instagram account. We tag them, we tag their Instagram account. And then currently we're building as well let's say a directory of businesses. So whoever wants to look for it, they can go to our website and search by industry. Now, due to the COVID-19 situation, and since we cannot have these startups physically available with us, what we do is that we try to support them by advertising for them on our social media accounts. So every Thursday, we get 1 or 2 businesses according to how many people have registered, and we display their logo with a support your local business. And then that you could, as a local entrepreneur or startup, everybody is welcome to join. We support everybody. There is no discrimination. So you could go to the website, look under corporate sustainability, Khamisna Zain, and register with us. Now, what we've noticed is that a lot of the startups do benefit from that because they get the exposure, so they like it and they keep coming back to us. So we've hosted more than the same startup more than once just because they've liked the outcome of it. People do like them. They do find that it boosts their familiarity in the market. So this is what we do with Khamisna Zain and how we in Zain support local businesses. We also have currently or recently joined with an MOU, Flat 6 Labs, which is an accelerator to startups. So there is a lot of projects that are going between us. We've launched one in Ramadan that had to do with support local businesses. We chose 4 of these businesses and we've given them a bit of more than what Khamisna Zain can do. So it was a bit of, they gave discounts to our customers. If you're a Zain customer, you get X, Y, Z. And based on that, we bulked SMS our base, promoting for them. In addition to that, a lot of the I don't want to say a lot of the entrepreneurs are youth, but we do have a youth segment as well when it comes to the entrepreneurs. So we have something called Generation Youth Program in Zain, where we support the youth segment. So if you are a student in university and you're looking to boost your experience when it comes to working, you're more than welcome to come and apply with us. So this is in a nutshell what we do for both startups and for youth. Of course, this whole thing falls under inclusivity and diversity. So we're looking into reduced inequalities. Women, men get the same chances. Even the disabilities, cross it out also. It's sort of an umbrella that goes over all our projects. Of course, we've got projects when it comes to sustainability that has to do with the environment as well, but I'll leave that for another chat. So this is in a nutshell what we do for startups and how we would like to support the local businesses. I leave the floor if anybody would like to ask anything.
Thank you, Shema. And I think, it's it's great to see everything Zain is doing for the startup community in Bahrain. The efforts are definitely noticeable. And thank you for explaining, that to us today. If anyone has any more questions or they want to find out more, they should go to the Zain website, right?
They should go to the Zain website under corporate sustainability if they're interested in Khamisna Zain. Also, there has been a lot of incidents in the past where people who have ideas that are very related to the telecom, or they thought that we could help them with to whether launch it or give some help. So we've recently had due to the COVID, it stopped, but there was a bit of a collaboration between us and the Royal University for Women on a particular project. There was an entrepreneurs over there who wanted to launch something. So they needed some help, whether mentorship, whether it came to getting some raw material or marketing for it. So yes, if the product is somewhere in line with what we believe in as objectives and our visions, we are more than happy to collaborate and help in whichever way possible.
Fantastic. Shaima, thank you once again. It's been a pleasure. Very good to see you.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Great. With that, we'll jump back into the presentation. I'd like to finish, one more section, and then we'll take a short break after that. But the next section we have, I think, is an important one. I wanted to talk about CRM and ERP integrations. And CRM and ERP are essentially the core systems of your business. Now, traditionally, the misconception has always been that you need to be a huge company to use CRM or ERP tools. But today, even startups can definitely benefit from these systems. So what's CRM and what's ERP for those who don't know? CRM means Customer Relationship Management, and it refers to a variety of software applications or online tools which help you manage everything about your customers. I think every business has customers, right? The fact that you're a business means you're either selling something or offering services or dealing with people. And CRM is a way for you to essentially manage those customers and keep records. And we'll go into that a bit. I'll show you an example as well. A question in the chat is, what's the difference between CRM and CMS? CRM and CMS are completely different things. So CRM is what I just mentioned. It's a tool you use to manage your customers. CMS is a content management system. Okay, they have some of the same sounding words in there, but CMS is essentially the back end of your websites. So it's something we mentioned briefly yesterday. When you have a website and you are updating the content dynamically, you don't want to go back to a developer to change it every day. You use what's called a CMS. The website builders you are using to build it, if you're not coding it, are in a way a CMS system. Okay, so the best way to remember it is CMS is what's behind your website. A CRM is a tool or system you are using to manage your customers, to manage their records and their behaviors, and go back and get data on what they are doing and interact with them. ERP refers to Enterprise Resource Planning. And again, these are tools, software, online or installed offline, which help you manage your business operations. So ERP systems have things like inventory, have things like links to accounting, even HR and staff. And the reason I said traditionally it was for bigger companies is because bigger companies always needed, obviously, to manage every aspect of their business and link it together. But it was also because the barriers to entry were huge. There was a big cost in place if you wanted to go to one of the big providers like Oracle, who would create such a system for you and customize it based on your customer's behavior. You'd end up paying thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dinars just to create a system like that. Thankfully, in the past, I'd say 10 to 15 years, there have been online solutions which are specifically easier to use. They cater towards smaller businesses and even startups, and they're not complicated. So any small business can, for minimal price, subscribe to one of these services and look into the different options they offer to manage their customers and to manage their operations. And the nice thing about them is you can integrate them with everything else you have in place. So when you have a CRM system, which you are managing to track your customers, and your customers are emailing you, you can actually integrate that system in, let's say, your Gmail account, where you can click on an email you received and send it to follow up. So another person on the team gets it as one of their tasks, and then they would get a reminder on their mobile to reply to that email. Okay, so it does offer a lot of features, and I wanted to show you a couple of options we have for each. So this is just very briefly what CRM might look like. You have your email integration I just mentioned. It can remind you to follow up. It can remind you to track projects. You can keep all your customer related documents there. If you have contracts and agreements and you want the whole team to click on a customer and get everything related to them, from the names of all the key people to all the emails sent out to all the contracts they signed, you can do that in one place. And I think it's useful to any business, even if you're a small shop and you're just selling small product. If you're selling mobile phones, for example, having a record of someone who came in 3 years ago and remembering that that person called you 3 months later with a complaint helps you manage that relationship the next time they come in to buy a new phone. You would then immediately log in and see their history, and that history would help you work on maintaining that customer and getting new sales after them. Question from chat: is Airtable considered a CRM system? No, Airtable is a sort of unique online system. I'd consider it more of a productivity tool. It's actually a hybrid of many things, and we're not covering it today, but I do recommend as well for you guys to search for Airtable and see if that's something you want to use even on a personal level. It's just another tool. We are going to cover some in the next section, online productivity tools. So I think if we have time, I'll just switch to a browser and show you that as well. But jumping back to CRM and ERP, which is the second system we are looking at, ERPs cover things like inventory management, supply chain, finance, human resources. So again, you do go back to thinking, well, I'm not big enough to need something called supply chain and finance, but actually even the smallest of businesses can benefit from some of these modules. Remember, you don't need to use the whole thing. And if you look at the blue circle there, even some ERP systems even have CRM built in and sales built in. So when we talk about these systems, it's not always clear cut. Sometimes you do have things overlapping, which is the case for I think everything in technology today. Service providers are adding more and more to what they have in the past. So what was traditionally a company focused on offering one accounting solution, today has a solution which integrates accounting with CRM, with HR. So you have it all in the same place. I think we have a question from Zaina would like to speak. Hello? Or was that an accident? All right. I'll just continue and assume that was an accident. But if anyone would like to ask questions live or mention something to everyone else, if you have any experience, then feel free to use the Zoom raise hand feature. It should be down there. And I'll see if we have time to get people on as well. Oops, sorry. I'll just take another question from chat before I show you these systems. So we have a question from Masoma. Isn't collecting data through CRM considered a violation of GDPR or data privacy? I don't know how many of you have heard about GDPR and the new privacy laws coming in Bahrain. So there are privacy laws which are being established. They started in Europe, they're moving to the US, and we will have local laws in Bahrain, which essentially put limitations on what data you can collect from your customers and what you can do from that data, okay? The reason these came up is because a lot of companies were actually selling their customer information, and I'm sure you've all received spam emails. You might have at times even received spam calls from other countries and wondered how they got your information. And the answer is it was due to a lack of privacy. It's not always random. There are databases out there where I can assure you every single one of you here today is on a database. If you've ever used an online service, created an account, if you've put in your mobile number somewhere, that information, especially your email, has been shared with multiple companies. So that happened because there were not any laws in place to protect that information. Today there are, and we will have them in Bahrain. And what essentially, what that means for you as a business is that essentially you need to get your customers' consent before you collect their information. The good thing is that consent is almost always given, but it might mean that you need to add it as a clause to your agreement. It might mean you need to add it as a pop-up on your website when people visit, and before they enter their shipping address or details, they have to tick a box saying, I consent to you storing my information. If they don't do that, most businesses will just not deal with you. They won't give you an option. Because then it complicates things. You can't deal with the customer if you can't save their email. You can't deal with the customer if you can't save their address to send them something, right? So a lot of times this consent is mandatory, and it's something businesses in Bahrain will need to think about in the future. It should be coming out, the details of it should be coming out this year, actually. Question, would it be possible to see a recording of this session? This session is being recorded. I think you can get in touch with the organizer later, and the link will be shared for everyone. So with that said, and before moving to a break, I just wanted to show you a bit more about CRM and ERP. I think it is an important area to focus on. And there are two solutions I wanted to talk about today. Can you see the browser window now? You should be seeing the Zoho CRM. And I know I mentioned Zoho yesterday as well. It's just because they are very friendly to startups and big companies as well. And they offer multiple solutions. One of them is the CRM. We spoke about the accounting. We spoke about the productivity tools yesterday. And the CRM is just another system, as you can see here, with many, many features. So I just wanted to touch on these features to sort of convince you why you would need CRM. As you can see, they talk about Salesforce automation, Okay, and under that you have things like lead management. Whenever you have a potential business opportunity, you can actually save that. You can remember the next steps which need to be done, and you can manage the contact details, so you know who to get in touch with. You can get reminders, and avoid manual work. So if you close a deal, you can have the system automatically send a contract, and get the signature. And then once that's signed, you can have the system automatically send them, for example, an invoice and track that process. You can manage processes better. So you can set rules like the ones I just mentioned. So if a new call comes in, you can then create a task for someone to call them back. If you have a website and you get people to fill a form, you can have an automatic process send an email thanking someone for their inquiry, and then creating a task for yourself to remember to get back to them later. It supports integration with multiple channels, so your email, your telephone, and very important, your social media will also be linked to the system. So even when you get inquiries on something like Twitter, you can just send them, you can convert them to a sales opportunity and close that lead. Um, a few more things. They offer analytics, so you can get reports. They have sales enablement. That means you can quote directly from the portal itself. They have integration with G Suite and Office. We're going to talk about these later, but we did mention them yesterday as part of the productivity tools. And very quickly, I'll just move on through these. So, you can see it's very, very feature rich. It's customizable. You can use it for any type of business. It doesn't matter, again, if you are small or big. I keep telling my smaller clients that you can use these systems. You can use them for managing even the smallest of businesses, or you can pick one part of them. Even if you just use this to send out invoices, I think it's still worth it, right? It's there. You don't need to be an expert and use the whole thing. But the fact that you have it, the fact that they have a mobile option, so you can get all your customer details on mobile as well, is, I think, very fantastic. Clicking on pricing, just to take a look, you can see it starts at $12 per user. So again, if you are a startup and if you're one person and you just want to use this, $12 a month is fantastic. And we've come a long way from the days where you had to pay 50,000 dinars to create a custom solution for your business using one of the big companies and pay to maintain it and host it. This is something you just go to, register online, get the account. You've got resources, documentation, training, videos, everything online. Definitely highly recommended. The other one I wanted to show you is called Odoo. So Zoho is a CRM. Odoo is an ERP slash with a CRM component. And just to show you the difference, if you look at what they have here, they do have a fully featured CRM inside Odoo. They have point of sale integrations for retailers. They have a whole sales system, but then you have much more. So looking here, you have projects, you have timesheets, very useful for bigger teams. You have a help desk system where people can raise tickets. They even have a website builder. So this goes back to the point I was making earlier about how all these systems are now, or how all these companies are now starting to integrate and become the same thing. Because even if you go to your domain provider, right, which was the basic level, you just get the name from them. They are now offering ways of managing your, tools to manage customers or certain applications as add-ons on top of the hosting. So it is becoming blended, and it's a big market out there. I'm just showing you one of each today. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of big solutions out there. It does need some research, but again, the purpose of these sessions, the reason we are going over this is for you as a business owner to think about what you might need and to know that there are these things out there. And if there is potential for you to use them, then it's definitely something to look into a bit more, talk to experts in the field, and see how you can integrate them. The costs are always within reach for startups and smaller businesses. This is an example now of Odoo pricing, and you can see it starts at $6, and you can actually pick and choose what you need. There's so much going on here, right? If you need the sales model only, that's an additional $4 with invoicing. If you want to use them for signatures, just sending contracts and getting signatures done. And the price can add up, but if these are things you actually need, then it definitely saves on the long term from having something custom built, or even from not having it. You always have to consider the cost of not having this in place. Um, Question from Masoma is, what do you think of Salesforce? So Salesforce is, again, one of the bigger and more advanced systems out there. I really like Salesforce. I recommend it for maybe bigger companies, not startups, because it can get quite complicated and it has different integrations and analytics. And I found that it's more useful when you customize it. So not straight out of the box, but they do, offer this small business solution. You can see here. You can check them out. You can see the pricing as well for Salesforce, which is starting from 25 euros per month per user. Most of these services charge you per user. So, just something to consider. Many different options available. Keep that in mind, look into it. And if we don't have any questions, we'll move on to a short 10-minute break. If you do have any questions, please put them in chat. Otherwise, we'll go to the break now, and we will continue in 10 minutes. Let me just find the break slide to put it on screen. I think I've lost it. Okay. All right, I'll see you all in 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back everyone. That was a good break actually. um, Let me just put up the slides again. Okay, before moving on, I just take a question from chat. Sarah asks about yesterday's session on domains. Is it necessary to have domain privacy protection, and does it work? So, does it protect personal information? One thing to note when you get a domain is that the global domain system, right? This is like a rule set up by the people who created the domain system, is that every domain needs to have ownership on information published on it. So traditionally, if I was to go buy any domain, if I'd get Bahrain.com, they'd ask me for my name, address, and mobile phone, or contact information, and that information has to be published publicly so that anyone looking up at that domain can find out who owns it. And for many many years, that was the only way of keeping a domain. You had to enter your actual information, and if you didn't, you'd risk losing that domain. Now, recently, in the past few years, the domain providers have started offering privacy or a privacy solution to work around that. So when you go and buy the domain, they ask you whether you want domain privacy. Now, some of them charge you an additional fee, like $1 or $2 on top. And some companies, like I know Namecheap, for example, has it built in for everyone. And what that essentially does is puts their name as the owner of the domain. Okay, so if someone searches for that domain, uh, they actually don't get your name, but they get the name of that company, and that's fine. That's allowed, and essentially that's something you should be getting nowadays. There's no reason to publish your actual name or company name. Sarah says it's around $30 extra. It shouldn't be that much. Depends on the type of domain. I don't know if that's what GoDaddy charges, but again, I can tell you that GoDaddy is free. So that's to answer that question. Next section. Online corporate training. I wanted to briefly touch on online corporate training because it's something available. And again, I put in the word corporate, but that's just the terminology. It's something even you as an individual can benefit from. It's something even smaller businesses with 2 or 3 employees can benefit from. It's something retailers can use to train their sales force. So don't think of it as just ignore the word corporate for now. But it essentially is about training your employees and training yourself, and is now more accessible than it has ever been before because of the numerous options and websites available online. Literally, I think any topic you can think about which is relevant to your business, you can find a course online to basically learn more about, improve your skills, acquire new skills, and get your staff to train themselves as well. Some of these I'm just going to mention. You can see them on the screen. LinkedIn Learning, it used to be called Linda. You've got Coursera, you've got Skillshare, Udemy, Pluralsight, and that's just to name a few. And the majority of these do focus on companies, especially LinkedIn Learning. But it's very useful if you want to um, learn a new skill you don't have, if you want to, um, let's say, hire people who are not trained, but then offer them training. You don't have to go to more expensive local options which require physical presence. You can actually get someone, for example, who wants to be a salesperson, get them a sales course and build their skills that way. So that's all I have on corporate training. I'm not going to show examples, but just to recap, this is everything we've covered so far. We're good for time. We're halfway in, so we will finish ahead of schedule. But we did cover, using the web. We talked about different technologies. We're going to talk about a few more as well. Payment, security, CRM, and ERP. And the next section is adopting new technologies to streamline your business. If you do have any questions about what we finished, please post them now. Let me just look at the chat for a minute. Okay. I'm going to move into the next section, which is adopting new technologies to streamline your business. This is the big one. Everyone's talking about cloud nowadays, right? Cloud services are, let's say, the latest buzzword when it comes to the internet, and they are something which might seem complicated, but in essence, it's just about services offered online to companies. And it's a very fluid term. It's used in many different ways. So if you're using Gmail, you are in a way using cloud email. So that's one way of looking at it. They mainly offer the benefit to more traditional and bigger companies who used to buy servers. So in the past, a lot of companies, a lot of these bigger businesses needed to have IT rooms with many servers, which they need to manage, and then they would install their systems on it. So you can imagine if you are someone like a credit card processor and every transaction comes back to your company and you need to keep, all those systems up and running. Today, you can get rid of that physical presence you have and just rent out the IT infrastructure you need online to put your systems on top of it. There are different kinds of cloud services. The abbreviations you see at the bottom, SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS, don't worry about it too much. Essentially, what it means is you can either get a ready service, you can get an email on the cloud, and you just pay them a fee to provide you with an email service, for example, or you can get the infrastructure, that's the I. You can actually just get a machine where you would install an email server and manage yourself. So it would be your own software. So it's just different ways of offering things. And the cloud options available now, specifically, not using that general term of cloud, but the specific service term, we've got AWS, Amazon Web Services, we've got Microsoft's Azure, and we have Google Cloud. So these are the three big players. Again, there are others, and many companies are offering cloud. I think when it comes to startups and smaller businesses, this isn't something very relevant as you are starting up, but the fact that it exists is something to keep in mind as you are using these other services. So remember when we spoke about all the different solutions like Zoho for accounting or CRM, these are essentially online services, and that's something I just wanted to touch on and clarify. Next, I'll talk a bit about business automation tools. So business automation is something we looked at earlier as one of the features available in ERP systems, but there are specific solutions which help you automate repetitive and recurring tasks, okay? And again, this is relevant for small businesses who have things they do on an ongoing basis. So if you do post on social media on an ongoing basis, or if you respond to emails in a certain way, I'm just going to cover some of these. So I will talk about each one. I mentioned here 5 different solutions for business automation. They are slightly different than one another. So let's take a look at them. The first one is automating processes, okay? So essentially what it says is when something happens on an application, on social media, on a website, on one of these different cloud platforms you use, then one of these providers, and we're talking about Zapier now, knows that this action happened and triggers another action. So let me give you a small example. Let's say someone emailed you, right? And you didn't check your email. The minute that email comes in, this system will then automatically create a task for you to reply. Um, let's take another example. If someone paid their invoice, this system will automatically generate a receipt for them and email it to them and add an entry in your accounting system so that you don't have to do those manual processes you repeat every time. Okay? This is what it looks like. This is Zapier. And you can see they have so many applications. Just taking a look at what the interface has, you can see the services they can integrate with and the services they can affect as well. So that's sort of the beauty of the cloud, right? Having all these different things online and having them available for integration makes life much more easy than what it used to be. So I think any small business needs to think about how they can use automation. It's not something which would immediately come to you, but once it does, once you start using it, it's quite useful to save on time, energy, and cost as well. Highly recommended. Another one, which is very similar, is called IFTTT, if then that. And it's the same concept as Zapier. So we just see a few different examples here. It says if I post something on Instagram, then save it to my Dropbox. So, you know, in a way you have a backup. If I take a photo using my phone, then email it to a certain account. And again, you can browse hundreds and thousands of different what they call recipes on things to do. But it really shines when you try to think out of the box and think of ways you can actually use this automation with the different services you use. As we're talking about all these services, you will, in a way, end up in a sort of online ecosystem. So I just want to go briefly here because if you look at the names, you've got Gmail, you've got Google Sheets, Dropbox, Google Calendar, Twitter, a mix of social media. This is now the online ecosystem of cloud applications, cloud services. And I think going forward, small businesses and even corporates need to move to this method of managing their operations by using these different tools and learning how they can integrate these tools together. So definitely these two automation workflow systems, Zapier and IFTTT, make that so much easier. These are just some more examples. You know, save tweets with a certain hashtag, for example, automatically to a spreadsheet. So you can just come into the morning, open an Excel sheet, and you see everyone who's mentioned you or everyone you need to reply to. You can have it automatically send out a read message every year, just so you don't need to remember doing that. You know, just automate those repetitive or boring tasks so you don't have to do it yourself. The third automation system I wanted to briefly touch on is called Active Campaign. Active Campaign is a basically an email marketing system. Okay, so you can use it to automate your email marketing campaigns, and I do recommend email marketing for businesses of all kinds. Just don't spam users. Use a tool like this so you can always give them an option of opting out. Use a tool like this so we can track and sort of see who's actually responded. You can manage campaigns. You can do a lot here. So I recommend you go into Active Campaign and look into it. There's a note in chat that there's no sound, but I think it's fine now. Why Active Campaign and not MailChimp? MailChimp is another good one. MailChimp is more focused on newsletters. So it's fantastic if you want to send out newsletters, you can use MailChimp. If you want to have more of a marketing type of campaign, and there are slight differences in them, and there are a lot of overlaps in them. Then you can look into it. But again, I recommend you look into both. The basic features might be the same. Uh, the difference will come down to the more advanced features, and it's up to you to see whether you like them, whether you need them, and decide on which one you want to use. So MailChimp is definitely another good option as well. And again, with all of these services, you have to remember there are dozens of alternatives out there. Um, what I'm showing you now is a glimpse of what's available so that you can think about things you can use, you can think about the options you have. But then once you delve into it, you will look at different options, you'll consider the different pricing they have, and see which one is more suitable. The fourth one is Hootsuite. Hootsuite is a social media management platform. Okay, so Hootsuite allows you to keep all your different social media accounts in one place. It allows teams to work together. So you don't have an issue where two different people who are in charge of the account wonder if the other person actually handled that query. It allows you to see who's talking about you. It allows you to track hashtags. Obviously, companies find this more important, but today, especially with recommendation for all small businesses to be on at least one social media platform, this can be a very useful tool to manage, monitor, and maintain your accounts, and even automate it in ways with posts that come out the next day. So you can plan the posts you have for a whole week on a Friday, have them ready. And if you remember the 80-20 rule we spoke about yesterday, to have that interesting content, they even suggest content for you. So you can have links to articles which are relevant to your followers. You can have some fun photos. And you can just set all that up at once, so you don't have to keep going back to your account and checking it and making sure to remember to post every day at 5 p.m. or whatever your strategy is. That's one. Another one I would like to mention is called Buffer. And Buffer is also a way of, let's say, queuing posts so they go out on at a certain time. And the last example I want to talk about is called Freshdesk. Freshdesk is a ticketing system, and you've all used ticketing systems when you have in the past sent an email or called a telecom provider with an issue, and they gave you a number, a reference for an issue you've had. Now imagine having the same thing for your customers. And again, don't think this is for big companies. Even the smallest businesses have problems, and they need to keep a record of it, and they need to follow up and get back to their customers. It can be something as simple as someone who bought a device from you or bought a pen from you, and it's not working and they want a refund. So they keep calling you. They call you to find out what happened. They call you to check where their money is. And you have different people picking up the phone, right? You can use the system to write their case in detail. You can use it to track their calls. You can use it to resolve their query, or even have them log in or follow a link to see what happened with the status of their issue. So I think all of you, when you think about your customers, think about those areas where they might have an issue and you don't want emails to go back and forth. Or, even if you're using email, you want to maybe get those emails into the system. So going back to integrations, Freshdesk does integrate with your email, and you can integrate with other automation tools so you can have things going out automatically. Okay, a note here from chat, quick info. Instagram recently added the option of scheduled posting. I was not aware of that. I know there are always improvements coming in, and I've heard of Facebook doing something as well. But again, these are things you need to be aware of, and then try different options and see what the best option for you is as well. Let's move on. Okay, I'd like to take questions. We're getting into the final quarter of this presentation, and I think it will be useful for everyone if I know what you guys are maybe focused on, which areas do you feel are more relevant to you? So we can maybe talk about them in the last section. And then, if you don't have any now, we will have one more chance to cover any questions you have. Okay, question, is there a tool, and let's wait for the rest of the class, to monitor conversations on DMs? I'm actually not 100% about this, but I think Hootsuite does allow you to monitor DMs. I don't know if I can just look that up quickly, because I'm interested in knowing if that's possible. But a lot of businesses do use that. So yes, there is something called Hootsuite Inbox, and I'm sure there are other solutions as well that allows you to monitor Twitter DMs in addition to Facebook private messages as well. Even comments, even the comments you get on Facebook posts, for example, or comments on LinkedIn pages, they consolidate that, so it can be under a certain customer profile. If it's a complaint, it can automatically be converted to a ticket so that you can action that and get your team to work on it later on. We did have a break here, but I think I will skip the break if that's okay, because we just had one. And perhaps we can just power through the next section and skip early, finish early if everyone's okay with that. If you need a break, let me know, but otherwise I'll just go to the next slide, which is about internal systems and SaaS, which stands for Software as a Service. Now, I put this slide here. When I was doing this presentation, I wasn't sure to put it in the beginning or the end, so I sort of put it in the middle. And this slide you see here, this concept of having internal systems or software as a service, is a summary or the overarching principle of everything we're looking at today. All these online systems, tools for productivity, for accounting, the cloud-based system, once you learn about them, you'll notice that they all create this ecosystem I spoke about, which is sort of the same thing. It's a new model, which means any company, no matter how big or small, can go online, search for a specific service or application, and then subscribe using a monthly fee to get it. Okay. It saves a lot on IT costs. It makes more sense for those who came from a traditional background of having to buy software and having to have an IT guy manage it for you. You're now moving to a cloud-based system on the internet, which you can access from the office, which you can access from mobile, which doesn't need an IT person to maintain, but maybe some sort of technical knowledge is needed. But then a lot of online resources are there which help you learn and use these systems. Okay, so this is just a principle which I wanted to speak about. Now you have examples in mind, right? Everything we already spoke about is an example of this SaaS model, and I expect all businesses going forward to be subscribed to multiple different services. Online subscriptions need a credit card. I just want to mention this briefly because companies I know are struggling with getting credit cards. For some reason, the corporate world never had a company credit card. Obviously, with smaller startups, with individuals, you might use your own credit card, but it's just something worth noting because there is this overlap. If you have a business entity and you can't get a credit card, you just need to shop around and find out which banks support you and what the requirements are. This is a comparison between the traditional software and software as a service. And I'm not saying this on the left is the perfect solution. There are still cases where you might need to customize something in-house or buy something off the shelf. And you would be paying one time for that as well. But the world is moving towards a subscription system. Even things like Microsoft's Word, right? Everyone's used Word. And maybe at a certain point in time, you had to buy Microsoft Word, or someone had to buy it for the university you're in, or the office you're working at. Uh, Today, Office 365 is a subscription model. So you do pay a monthly fee, which is in a way more affordable if you were going to buy a new version every time. But some people still prefer to go for the older versions where you just pay, pay $100 one time, get it over with, and don't be attached to a subscription, even if you don't get the benefits of, the multiple updates. Uh, Obviously, another major feature of going with the cloud software as a service is that you can use it on multiple devices. So I don't know the age range of the people we have here, but I am someone who, when I started working for a company, my first job, the only way of getting things done is to physically go to the office. So we had cases where we had to go back to the office at 8 p.m., for example, or stay late after work. Now today, everyone knows you can have email everywhere, but you can also have the corporate tools you rely on online, the CRM systems, ERP systems we spoke about, all on your mobile phone and accessible from within a browser. So, this is the new paradigm shift. I didn't open with this. I wanted to show some examples before talking about it. But I think definitely all businesses should keep that in mind and consider internet applications, software on the internet to be the future. Moving on, we're going to talk about some productivity tools. And productivity tools are essentially the systems you use to manage your business. Um, let's talk about email, for example. Everyone knows Gmail now, and Gmail is a part of the productivity tool. Yesterday, we covered these three. We spoke about Zoho, Office, and G Suite. And what this essentially is the equivalent of, let's say, Microsoft Word at a basic level, Excel, and PowerPoint, and taking that and moving it to the cloud so that you and a team of people, even if you have two people in the company, this can be extremely useful. You can collaborate on different documents. You can collaborate on different systems, tasks, share files, so you can have one place for all the storage. There are other solutions specifically for storage like Dropbox, for example, and you can use a combination of all of these. So I personally use some services from Google just because I like them. I also use some services from Microsoft Office 365, mainly because I want that Word interface and prefer PowerPoint to everything else. And I do have a Zoho account because they have a bit more when it comes to the project management and ERP systems and accounting, which Office 365 and Google don't have. So I recommend you go and see what these guys have to offer. And the pricing, again, starts at $5 per user per month. So it should be affordable to a startup. The next three solutions I wanted to talk about are more focused on project management and working with teams. So this would be relevant for teams of 2 or 3 people and up. If you are working with multiple people and you have projects, right? So any company which has projects with specific milestones and you want to track who's doing what and where you are on the status. Just looking at this view, it's an example of different tasks. So they have things in the tracking, in the planning stage. They have milestones they want to track, and everything has a priority. It has an owner. You can see on the right. So when you log into your dashboard, you will see the tasks you are supposed to be doing with the deadlines those tasks have. I mean, this is even useful if you are on your own and you just use it as a single person just to track different things happening. At a certain time, I've used this just to track my life, open a bank account or remember to service the car. Extremely useful. But when you do have projects, this is more of a kind of view you can be creating or see where you can see where the project is in terms of date and completion. You can see who's doing what and when and who depends on who before they can start. And you can chat in this. You've got a calendar, you've got progress. And going back to automation, you can integrate this with the different systems. So again, when you spoke about being on the cloud and using all these systems and having Gmail and then using if this then that to send an email to create a task here, which will then link back to your CRM system so you can monitor a customer and know when that task is done. You know, I'm trying to complicate it in a way to show you how these tools will actually make it simple for you and make your life easier by linking together and automating. The only thing you need to do is think about areas where you can use them. Another project management tool is Basecamp. I just wanted to show this as well because it has a different interface. You can see there's a message board. There are to-dos, so you can see what people need to do. There's even chat and documents. Again, part of that overlap between all these different systems we are looking at. And the final one I wanted to show is Trello. Trello is what I personally use to sort of track everything I need to do and take a look at all the projects I have, personal and business related. It's sort of like a to-do list, but it has a more unique layout called boards. And then you can see every board has different things. You decide on what these are. So there is a barrier to entry because you need to learn how it works, and then you need to decide on how you are going to use it. Obviously, they have some examples, but I would compare it to something like, you know, having these post-it notes, and then some people like to have these all around their desk. You are in a way digitalizing it. You can add photos, you can add links, you can add dates and reminders and set priorities to different things. And again, if you see here on top, there's Google Drive. So again, the link to Google is there. And most important of all for teams is you can integrate with, you can interact with different people so that they can see their own dashboards, they can contribute to other people's boards. Masuma mentions that there's a service called Microsoft Planner. It's similar, yes. And there are others as well. Again, there are hundreds of solutions you can go for. These are some of the most popular ones. But even if you try one and there's something you don't like about it, it might be just the way it lists things, or you know, you find that you'd like to add video and you can't in product X. You can actually go to another one and find out if you can do that. I'll take a question here as well. One of our attendees today actually has a recommendation for a team messaging and collaboration app called Jendi. It's similar to Slack. I'm going to talk about Slack later, and I'll probably bring up Jendi on screen as well to show you guys. So that will be in the next section. Business communication tools. Okay. So I think with the current situation, with everything that's happened, there has been a huge jump in business communications. Perhaps everyone heard about Skype in the past. Companies used Skype for certain communication, but once this need for video calling and video conferencing came in, we had these big names like Zoom, which we are using now, come up. So just looking at these, I just wanted to touch on this, obviously, because it is relevant to the current scenario. Zoom is probably the most accessible because when they started, it was so easy to create a free plan, jump in, and send a link to people to join. Obviously, with that growth, there were some security issues which they quickly moved to resolve. So, things are changing, and the pluses and minuses mentioned on the screen are actually changing day by day because the whole world is going through the scenario of needing to use video conferencing. But I think I wanted to show it not because it's relevant today, but because I think there will be a paradigm shift in how businesses work in the future as well. So I do see us relying more on video communications a year down the line. And I think it would be useful for everyone to try out all three, um, because at a certain point in the future, you might use this to interact not only internally as a business within your staff, but even with your customers. And as time goes by, I think we will find additional integrations which allow you to quickly use these tools to video chat with customers. So as an example, if you had someone email you and they had an issue and you'd raise a ticket for them, or ask them to call you, I think with these tools, you would immediately be able to send them a link where they would click and be able to face-to-face try and resolve their issue. They could maybe show you, if you're selling phones, they could show you the phone and show you the problem they have, and you'd help them resolve it. So again, one of those areas where every business needs to think about whether this can be useful for them or not. I think it can be useful for any business. I think even if you think it's not relevant, like maybe you have a hair salon and you're in the beauty industry, you can actually video call customers as part of a business solution to show them what a certain product looks like. So I'm just trying to think about ideas out of the box. But again, this is something for you as a business owner to think about. In addition to video chat, we have, let's say, text-based communication tools, okay? And everyone uses text-based communication tools. We all use WhatsApp on a daily basis. And what I have on the next slide is a big no on using WhatsApp for business communications. Yesterday, I recommended using WhatsApp for business to interact and talk to your customers. But when it comes to internal communications, you need a system which you can actually manage, monitor, go back to, and you need everyone to be on the same page, okay? So the big two names in the industry are Slack and Discord. I am going to bring up one in the browser as well. Just give me a minute, I'll switch to that. Okay, so I hope you can see the browser screen now. And again, this is a collaboration tool for teamwork, which is more regional. And the features you expect from a tool like this, which would be useful in these circumstances, is obviously chatting, but also being able to access different files and being able to integrate with the different platforms we spoke about. And we have Renad here with us in chat if any of you guys want to ask more about this, or go on later and check what they have to offer. But again, I want to stress, going back to the presentation, that you should not use WhatsApp for business communications. We've had cases where people have been fired in the past 2 months in Bahrain because there was miscommunication over WhatsApp, and then they could not prove what was said, and messages got deleted. So, just a lot of unfortunate scenarios which can be prevented if you use the tools which were created basically for corporate communication. Discord used to be more of a gaming platform. It still is catered toward gamers, but again, companies can find it very useful. Sarah asks, what were the second and third options besides Zoom? Zoom, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams. So Google and Microsoft amongst the top known names. For some reason, Zoom was actually able to get a track hold into the video conferencing market before them. They were a bit slow to respond. Their solutions were always there, but again, no one expected the whole situation to happen. Zainab asks, what about business WhatsApp? Business WhatsApp is something you should definitely use for you to interact with your customers, okay? So when I talk about business communication tools, I'm talking about internal communications between employees. WhatsApp for Business is something you use to talk to customers, which is great and recommended. But WhatsApp is not something you should use for staff to talk to each other. If you have multiple employees, a WhatsApp group is not the best way of keeping them up to date with business. A WhatsApp message is not the best way for a manager to tell an employee what to do. You can still use it on a casual basis, and smaller companies always do. But having these tools available, Slack and so on, I don't think there's a reason you can't just download it, use it for free, and have something proper in place so that even when you grow, you can go back to those messages and use them. Are there any tools or software to send broadcasts daily on WhatsApp? I don't know of any tools, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. I know a lot of times in business we do want to reach customers, but automating broadcasts might mean you're sending a bit too much, and I won't get into that. That's more of marketing, so maybe consult with someone who works in marketing and see if it makes sense for your business or not. Do these apps provide the ability to record meeting minutes? Yes, they do. So the video apps we spoke about, we are recording today's session. The chat applications we mentioned have logs and you can track everything. So because they are catered to a business, right? So you can record, you can have minutes sent out later. It's all pretty integrated. So definitely something for all businesses to consider going forward. And with that, I think we're nearing the end, so we will finish early today. I just have one more slide I wanted to talk to you about, which is about APIs. APIs stand for Application Programming Interfaces, and they will be relevant to you if you are using any system which is not part of the cloud, okay? In most cases, for I think most people joining us here and for those in retail, they would have, for example, a cash register. Now, there are cloud-based cash registers, but almost everyone I know in Bahrain has a cash register which is independent and not connected to any other systems. And the information in it needs to be sort of reviewed and exported. All of that is getting better with time. APIs essentially help you create those integrations and automations we spoke about earlier, using these offline solutions you might already have in place. So this is relevant to everyone who has software which they have been using in the past, and they want to somehow integrate it with cloud-based solutions. And you would need a developer, definitely, to do that. You won't find that many ready-made APIs which allow you to link your Gmail to your cash register for whatever reason, like sending an invoice. But in many cases, it might be very affordable to think of new scenarios where you can link any system you have in place and automate it to make it similar to the other solutions we discussed here today, if you are not using an online solution. Okay. I think with that, we are going to close. If there are any questions, please type them in chat before we end the session. I wanted to also talk to you about mentorships, which is something offered by Startup Workshops. Mentorships essentially mean that if you found any of these topics I discussed today useful, if you would like me to have a more in-depth discussion specific to your business or come up with a plan of things to do, then please email the address you see on screen here, which is workshops@startupmagazine.com. It is on a first-come, first-served basis, so please email them if you are interested and tell them about your business or idea and obstacles you face, and hopefully we can plan more one-on-one sessions via Zoom or calls or email to look at what your business specifically needs and take it from there. Let's see, another question. There's a website called Fiverr, which connects you to freelancers. I think, yes, Fiverr is a useful website. So if you need tasks, if you need smaller tasks to be done, for example, you are managing your Instagram account, but you don't have a designer to create a post layout for you. You can go on fiverr.com. That's 5 with 2 R's at the end. And the prices start at $5, right? That's why it's called Fiverr. For $5, you can find someone who will design that for you. If you want a bit of music to play when your customers walk in, if you need anything creative done, if you need text written, if you want someone to create a brochure for you or record a video where they talk about your business so you can post on social media, it's a great site for content. We didn't talk about content creation in these sessions, but content creation is something you can do on your own, but also rely on freelancers to help you out. Finally, if you need to get in touch with me, my name is Ehsan. My email is ehsan@koohejisystems.com. I don't see any more questions, so I'd like to thank you very much. Oh, one more question. Nahad needs a list of the best mobile app developer companies and solutions. I think for me, because I run a company, so it's a conflict of interest to mention other companies. There are some very good companies in Bahrain. Just ask around. I think you will hear the same names from different people. And again, if any of you have any queries, please feel free to email me. It has been a pleasure to present this to you today. I will ask the organizers to share the recording when available. And also I will make these slides available. So I will see how they will get it out to everyone else. Thank you once again. It was lovely being here for the past 2 days, even though it's virtual. I hope, sometime in the future we would get to do this face-to-face in future sessions with new topics. And thank you. Have a good night and take care.